Okay, so we know that Suren had been playing matchmaker for Maomao and Jinshi since day one. But this time, things are a little different. Jinshi has finally gained some self-control. Instead of trying to rush her, he's just acting cute and indirect, like patting her head to make himself feel better. But Maomao, being Maomao, doesn't like it much, so she accidentally blurts out that there must be better ways for him to feel better. Of course, Jinshi immediately teases her, asking if it was an invitation for him. Naturally, Maomao made her escape once again. Volume 10 starts when everybody finally reached Western Capital. It is now ruled by Gyokuo, Empress Gyokyo's half-brother, and Jinshi's official purpose is diplomacy, but his true mission is to help and address the potential insect plague, a threat he's been secretly preparing for. Maomao is paired with the quack and an annoyingly skilled physician, Tian Yu. While they are there, Jinshi's status as an imperial visitor is constantly undermined by Gyokuo, who is a manipulative person who thinks that he's a hero who can't do anything wrong. He's also xenophobic and politically intelligent, so he basically views the central court visitors as tools. After a few days, Maomao wanted to go visit the farming villages. Jinshi allowed it since they knew that a plague was coming. Maomao went to one village with Rikuson, as she told Jinshi not to prepare the carriage for her since she had a lot to talk about with him. And like always, Chui and Lihaku were with her. Now while they were there, they expected the grasshopper swamp to hit with devastating force. And it did. It was chaotic, but while everyone else was panicking, Maomao noticed that Rikuson was calm, a little too calm. He looked at the sky, still dark with swamp. The insects were everywhere, but he seemed to be looking somewhere beyond them, above them. They say disasters drive out disaster. We should be lucky, he said. Mama didn't know what he meant, but she stared into the darkness herself. Then something smacked her. She looked at the ground, wondering what it could have been, and found a lump of ice. The pain came again, on her back this time, then on her shoulder. The hail starts to fall and the air gets cold. Between the large chunk of ice and freezing air, the grasshoppers begin to move slowly. Disaster drives out disaster, huh? Maomao said. No, this wasn't a disaster. This was a gift from heaven, she thought, and it was not a conclusion Maomao would have normally reached. Her craziness starts to show, but it was speeding in another direction. She leaned forward as the hail fell among the swamp. Not a rain dance as it were, but a hail dance. Personally, I can imagine her dancing. And even though I know it's probably going to take forever to be animated, I'm really looking forward to it. She didn't feel the pain of the bugs biting at her, nor of the hail striking her. She was so full of wish, the hope that something, anything might happen to help them with this numberless swarm of insects. But soon she felt a especially heavy blow right to her head this time. She remembered Rikuson running over to her, but then everything went black. Off the story, but a little something about Rikuson's past. After Maomao got up again, she asked him how he could stay so composed. That's when he shared his trauma. He told her that his mother used to say, "You must never lose sight of yourself, no matter what the situation." Then for a second, his expression flattered. And he told her his mother's last words, which were that when you most want to break down, that's when you must be most calm. Then he continued telling her that when he was a child, his mother and older sister hid him where he wouldn't be found, and then they were killed right before his eyes. It's dark, I know, and believe me, his whole story in volume 11 is unexpected and sad, but it had somewhat good ending. Back then, if he had made a sound, he would have been killed too, but he couldn't cry out, couldn't yell, because his mother, knowing very well that he would have screamed his rage and tried to jump on the killers, stuffed a gag in his mouth and bound his hands and feet. But because of that, he survived. For Maomao, that wasn't an easy story to respond to, so she replied in the only way she could think of. She said, "Because you survived, so did this village." "I appreciate that, Maomao, that way of looking at it," he replied. Then he smiled again and said, "I feel like you and I get along quite well, Maomao. Do you think I could seek your hand in marriage?" "Surely you jest," Maomao said, not taking him too seriously. "Yes, of course, surely," Rikuson said and chuckled. I'm not sure I realized he was the type to make that kind of jokes, Maomao thought as she was surprised. Then again, he said something similar last year, the last time they had been in the Western capital. Maybe this was just another side of him. And even though a lot of people think that he did it to make make Jinshi mad/jealous because he knew that Chui would tell Jinshi everything? I'm not so sure about it. The first time was definitely to get a reaction out of him, but I feel like this time was a little different. It could be a possibility that he might actually like her, so maybe it was an attempt to push her away from him, from the danger, and from this farm, since he was on his own mission there. Tell me your thoughts. Returning to the main city of the western capital, Maomao found it in chaos, far worse than the farming village. Because unlike the farmers who fought the grasshoppers for their crops, the city people simply panicked and hid inside. And as many poor people there live hand to mouth, they quickly ran out of food. That's when she observed a relief effort in the main square, where they were distributing sweet potato congee made from the large supply that Jinshi had bought with Lahan's brother's help. After that, they went to Jinshi's chamber to report their findings. Both Chui and Lihaku stepped backwards, so it was Maomao who had to speak. We just returned, sir, she said, standing a little straighter and talking a little more properly because Tao Mei was there. Very good, Jinshi replied with an air of detached authority. Then he asked how was it, and Maomao told him everything that had happened. Soon they were dismissed. Maomao turned to follow Lihaku, but immediately found Soren blocking her exit. Can I help you? Maomao asked, and Soren told her to spare them just a little more of her time. So she had to stay. Now Jinshi was no longer wearing his Moon Prince expression. Is your head alright? He asked. Masin must have told him about it, but instead of worrying about herself, she looked closely at him. She could see dark bags under his eyes, and his lips were dry. Still, she replies, I'm not sure, sir. Sometimes a person dropped dead out of the blue a few days after being hit on the head. Then you need to be laying down, he exclaimed. No, sir. My time will come when it comes, and about the only person who could do anything about it would be my father. But he wasn't in the western capital, so she preferred to do what she could do while she could do. Explain the right hand then. Scars from an experiment, she said slowly. I thought you didn't use your dominant hand for that. He gave her a long, hard look, the reverse of their usual positions, but at length he said that it was fine. More importantly, she was alright, and that's all that matters. She saw how his hand clenched and unclenched and realized that the Moon Prince has reverted entirely to Jinshi. To her, it was almost childlike, and indeed very human. You must be tired. You should return to your room and get some sleep, he said. Now that Mama was grateful to hear. But even though she was eager to go back to her room, there was something that she needed to know. Master Jinshi, are you not doing anything about the swarm yourself? Jinshi explained with an official tune that as a guest, his direct actions were limited. So instead, he prepared a gift for the local officials so they could help. The gift was the sweet potato supplies he brought with him, which Mama had seen being distributed as congee in the market. Soon she realized the painful truth. Gyokuo, the capital's current ruler, was taking all the credit. Jinshi did the work, but Gyokuo was getting the townspeople's gratitude and the hero status. So to him, Jinshi was merely a convenient pawn, a high-status visitor whose actions could be controlled. If the warnings failed, Jinshi would be blamed for stirring up trouble. If they succeeded, Gyokuo would look like the responsive ruler. And from here on, we get to know more about Gyokuo, and if you are going to read the novels, you'd probably dislike him like me, Maomao, and the others. Meanwhile, Jinshi, who seemed to keep drawing the short straw, couldn't hide his exhaustion from those closest to him. He needed to get some sleep, and soon, Mama thought, and she was about to try to bring an end to the conversation when Soren called, asking Basin to take care of his duck. She also asked for Taomei's help, so she went outside with him as well. It was already dark, so Chui lit a lantern. The sweet smell of honey floated through the air. Miss Chui, perhaps you'd help me with dinner preparation, Soren asked, and Chui agreed. Before leaving, Soren gave Mama a wink. I get it, real nice, Mama thought. Without delay, Gaoshun went out with them. I don't know if Soren knows what's going on with these two, but it's clear that she is one of their biggest shipper out there in the novel, and she might also be the first person to ship them together. Once the two of them were alone in the room, Mama took a deep breath, then heaved a sigh, calling his name and saying, Don't you think you're pushing yourself too hard? The last traces of the Moon Prince vanished, and the Jinshi she knew answered, Is there ever a time when I'm not? From the moment he had been born as a member of the imperial family, freedom had not been a word in his vocabulary. Mama realized that she'd simply asked the obvious, so she changed the question a bit. How much more too hard can you push yourself then? She knew that there had to be a limit to how much he could take. You ask tough questions. We don't know where the limit is until we find it, do we? He replied. Most people who ruin themselves beyond repair do it at work, while continually swearing that they could keep going. She encountered, and that left Jinshi quiet for a moment, but his face darkened. Isn't that what an apothecary is for? To make them better? He asked. Yes, sir, more or less. Shall I prepare the herbal bath for you? She was saying, but Jinshi denied it and held out his hand. Maomao stared at it, trying to decide if it had some significance. But the large hand stretched a little further and placed itself on Maomao's head. Yikes, she thought. He mussed her hair as if he were petting a dog. She tried to slap him away, but he dodged her. What the hell, sir? She asked, patting her messy hair back into their place. She hadn't had the chance to bathe for several days, so it felt thick and greasy. I simply made myself better, so I wouldn't reach my limit so soon. Jinshi held his head high, as if to say he hadn't done anything wrong. There must be better ways to do that, sir, she encounters. Is that an invitation to utilize these ways? He teases, and neither of them said anything. Then she realized what she had said, so she backed away a half step and crossed her arm in an X. Tell me about these better. He began, but Mawa said, okay, I've reported everything I have to report, if you'll excuse me. And then, with an artful dodge, Mawa ducked out of the room. Outside, she let out a long breath. He'd been so indirect lately that she'd forgotten that his true personality was to charge ahead. His methods could be brutal. If he had been showing restraint with Maomao, it was only because of the ridiculous way he'd decided to go about this whole thing. I personally appreciate how he'd slow down for her, and maybe it was one of the reasons why she subconsciously got more comfortable around him. And maybe it's also one of the factors that led her to accept her feelings for him. And as for Rikuson's proposal, Jinshi received that little heart attack in the next volume. It's from chapter 2 of volume 11, where Maomao finds Jinshi's room messy with numerous discarded drafts of letters, indicating that he'd been frantically corresponding with bureaucrats and regional rulers. There were up to 200 letters that he wrote to coordinate the disaster. Maomao asked Soren if his pride would be hurt because he was practically begging for help from others. Do you suppose that's the sort of thing that would bother the Moon Prince? She asked, and of course Maomao replied with a no. I mean, this was the same man who had spent 6 years pretending to be a eunuch, so he was probably unconcerned about the public or the foul treatment he was receiving in the western capital. That's why we need you to say something to him, Maomao, Siren said, but she didn't finish her sentence. But what? Maomao asked. Well, good luck. She pats Maomao on the shoulder, and for some reason she was smiling, and Maomao soon discovered why. For Jinshi emerged from the bedroom, Chui and Gaoshun were with him, and from the moment Maomao saw the grin on Chui's face and the way Gaoshun was pressing a hand to his forehead, she had a bad feeling about this. Jinshi did not look like he was in a good mood either. Chui told me everything, he said. I gather you enjoyed yourself at the farming village? Huh? Haven't seen him in this kind of a mood for a while, Maomao thought. She knew what was up, and she wasn't very happy with Chui for ratting her out. You and this man, Rikuson, it sounds like you're awfully close, Jinshi continued, and it was exactly what she had expected. I'm not sure I'd say that, sir, Maomao replied. Oh, is that so? He asked. So Maomao glared at him. Chui stuck her tongue out and playfully bobbed herself on the forehead. Meanwhile, Gaoshun looked at his daughter-in-law as if lost for words. Then why were you so intent on going with him specifically to that village? He questioned. Because I know one carriage is cheaper than 2. Besides, I thought it might be useful if we could share information with each other, she replied, but her reasoning didn't seem to satisfy Jinshi at all. She asked if she could go back because it was already late at night. Before coming here, she intended to check Jinshi's injury as well, but it looked like the best thing to do right now was to get out of here. A high wall, however, appeared in front of Maomao. Jinshi had risen from his seat and was standing smack in front of her. Yes, sir? She asked, but Jinshi continued to look less than pleased. It has come to my attention that this man with whom you claim not to be especially close recently proposed marriage to you. Okay, at least he was to the point this time, instead of questioning her indirectly and getting his own heart broken. I'm given to understand that it was a joke, sir, Maomao replied. Does one say such thing in jest? He asked. Perhaps it was a social nicety, like the hair steak Master Liha could give me at the garden party, she reminded Jinshi, since he had been grumpy on that occasion as well. This time though, Maomao for her part had faith that it would be no problem if she was upfront and honest. Jinshi fell silent, though he looked looked like he very much wanted to say something, but he was a busy man with much to do. So they go back to talk about work. By the way, it's also the volume where they had another one of their cute scenes. In that scene, he holds Maomao's hand to recharge, but I'll tell you about it another time. For now, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for listening to me. Take care of yourself and goodbye.
I don't really wanna hurt you, but I can't control the pain. If you're sticking by my side, maybe we could be okay. Okay, maybe you could be the change.